I stood barefoot on the cool marble floor of my oceanfront office, the morning light spilling through glass walls that opened to the sea. The waves rolled in steady and calm, like they belonged to me. And in a way, they did. This resort, my resort, was the kind of place people once told me I could never even afford to visit. The irony wasn't lost on me. I smoothed the sleeve of my silk blouse, the fabric whispering against my skin, as my phone buzzed on the desk. One notification lit the screen. Group check-in, Reynolds party. My stomach tightened at the name. The Reynolds sisters, Melissa and Claire, my former college classmates. The ones who had laughed at me all those years ago, told me I was too poor to join them on their Caribbean spring break trip. And now, they were standing in my lobby. I exhaled slowly, watching their arrival through the security feed. Designer luggage trailed behind them, their voices carrying that same arrogant lilt I remembered. Only this time, the staff they barely acknowledged were my employees, working in my resort. For a moment, I felt the old sting, the burn of humiliation from the past. But I also felt something else, power, quiet and unshakable. This was the moment I had secretly imagined for years. The moment when the story finally turned. I was 19 when it happened. Back then, I was just Emily Carter, the girl with a part-time job at the campus library and a beat-up secondhand car that coughed black smoke whenever I started it. My roommates were planning a spring break trip to the Caribbean, sun, cocktails, matching swimsuits, the kind of thing you saw plastered all over Instagram. I wanted to go. God, I wanted to go. I sat with them in the dorm lounge, clutching the flyer Melissa had waved in my face. "It's only $1,500 each," she said breezily, sipping her iced latte like it was pocket change. Claire smirked, leaning back on the couch. "Yeah, but Emily, do you even have that kind of money? I mean, no offense, but maybe you should just sit this one out." They laughed. Not cruelly, not in the obvious villainous way, but in that subtle, dismissive way that stung so much more. Like my dreams were a joke. I remember my throat tightening, my palms sweating as I tried to laugh it off. "Yeah, maybe not this year." My voice cracked, betraying me. Inside, humiliation pooled like lead in my stomach. They weren't just telling me I couldn't go on a trip, they were telling me I didn't belong in their world. That night, I went home and found my grandmother sitting on the porch, stringing together seashells into a wind chime. She always smelled faintly of lavender and peppermint, a comforting mix that made me feel safe. I collapsed into the chair beside her, fighting back tears. "What's wrong, baby girl?" she asked softly. When I told her, she didn't look surprised. She just nodded, tying a knot into the thin thread. Then she handed me one of the shells, smooth, pearly white, with a hole worn through the center by time and tide. "Don't let their laughter write your story," she said. "Tides change, Emily. You might not go on their trip, but one day, you'll have a journey that's all your own." I still keep that shell with me. That night, lying in bed with the shell pressed in my palm, I made a quiet vow. I would never again let someone else define what I could or couldn't afford. If I couldn't join their trip, fine. One day, I'd build something so extraordinary that they would wish they'd believed in me. It was the night humiliation turned into. After that night, something in me shifted. While everyone else returned from their beach vacations with tans and Instagram reels, I signed up for extra shifts at the library and started scanning job boards for anything that smelled of travel, hotels, or hospitality. I didn't know exactly how, but I was determined to turn that humiliation into fuel. My first break came the summer after sophomore year. A tiny boutique hotel on Cape Cod needed seasonal staff. The pay was awful, but the chance to work in a real resort environment lit me up. I packed my thrift store suitcase and drove my rusty car across 3 states, heart pounding the whole way. The hotel was nothing glamorous, peeling paint, cranky air conditioners, endless laundry loads, but to me, it was possibility. I worked the front desk by day, cleaned rooms when housekeeping was short-staffed, and stayed up late studying every detail of how reservations were managed, how guests were treated, how profit was made. One woman noticed me, Margaret Holloway, the general manager. She was in her late 50s, sharp as glass but kind in a way that made you want to rise to her standards. One night, she caught me scribbling notes at the front desk when most staff would have been scrolling their phones. "You hungry?" she asked, sliding a plate of leftover pasta from the kitchen toward me. I nodded, embarrassed. She smiled. "You've got potential, Emily. Don't waste it." From then on, she became my mentor. She taught me not just how to manage bookings and budgets, but how to see hospitality as an art, anticipating needs before they were spoken, making strangers feel like family. Under her guidance, I rose quickly. By the time I graduated, I wasn't just the poor girl from campus. I was a woman with experience, confidence, and a growing love for the world of resorts. Still, success didn't come easily. I worked 14-hour days, often in cheap heels that blister my feet. I ate ramen noodles in staff housing while smiling at guests who dined on lobster and champagne. There were nights I cried into my pillow, wondering if I was crazy for chasing a dream so far beyond what I'd grown up with. But little by little things shifted. My first promotion came at 23, assistant front desk manager. My first real savings account started at 24. At 25, I pitched a bold idea to Margaret about redesigning packages for off-season travelers. To my shock, it worked, the hotel's revenue climbed, and for the first time, I felt the thrill of creating success with my own ideas. Every small win built on the last. I networked, I learned, I took courses online in finance and marketing. I scraped together enough money to partner in a small vacation rental business. Then another. Slowly, quietly, I built a portfolio. All the while, my old classmates still posted their curated vacations online, beach photos, cocktails in hand. I liked their posts, but never said much about my own life. To them, I was still Emily, the girl who couldn't afford the trip. I kept it that way deliberately. My success was private, hidden. Because I wasn't finished yet. I wasn't just chasing money. I was chasing the moment. The day I would own not just a seat on the trip, but the destination itself. The sound of rolling suitcases echoed across the polished marble of the lobby. I watched from the mezzanine balcony, invisible for the moment, as Melissa and Claire checked in with my front desk staff. They hadn't changed much. Melissa still carried herself like a queen bee, oversized sunglasses perched on her head, a designer tote dangling from her arm. Claire, thinner now, scrolled her phone while speaking in that same clipped tone I remembered from our dorm days. My staff greeted them warmly, my staff, in tailored uniforms embroidered with the resort's crest. I could see Melissa's expression falter for just a second as she looked around, clearly impressed by the soaring glass ceilings, the ocean view framed perfectly through the lobby windows, the chandelier that sparkled like it had been pulled straight from a fairy tale. "This place is incredible," Claire whispered, almost to herself. I allowed myself a quiet smile. They didn't know.
"Not yet."
Ms. Reynolds, my front desk manager, said smoothly. "The owner has asked to personally welcome you. If you'll follow me." Their brows furrowed in curiosity as they were led toward the executive wing. I descended the stairs slowly, heels clicking against marble, every step echoing in my chest like a drumbeat. When they entered my office, I was already seated behind the mahogany desk, sunlight spilling over my shoulders. On the desk sat a small object I always kept close, the seashell my grandmother had given me, its pearly surface catching the light. For a moment, none of us spoke. Their eyes darted around the room, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the framed awards, the travel photos from places I had visited for business. Then their gazes landed on me. Melissa blinked, stunned. "Emily." I leaned back in my chair, offering a calm smile. "Welcome to Ocean Crest Resort. I hope your journey was smooth." Claire's mouth parted. "Wait, you? You work here?" I let the silence stretch, enjoying the delicious tension. Then, with a soft laugh, I said, "Work here?"
"No."
"I own it." The words dropped like a stone in still water. Their faces were a portrait of disbelief. Claire's phone slipped slightly in her hand. Melissa's cheeks flushed pink. For once, neither of them had something clever to say.
I
don't understand," Melissa stammered. "You own this place?" I nodded, folding my hands neatly on the desk.
Yes.
And a few others. But this one is special. I let my gaze linger on the shell. This is the kind of resort I once wasn't rich enough to visit. Do you remember? Their silence told me everything. They remembered. The power shift was almost tangible, like the air itself had changed. I wasn't a shy, broke girl fumbling for words in the dorm lounge anymore. I was the woman who had taken every ounce of their mockery and turned it into a kingdom. Claire finally found her voice. Emily, we didn't mean. Didn't you? I interrupted gently, not unkind, but firm. You laughed. You told me I didn't belong. And maybe we're right back then. But tides change. I stood, the silk of my blouse catching the light, and walked to the window overlooking the turquoise waves. My heels clicked softly against the floor. When I turned back to face them, their eyes were wide, almost reverent. Enjoy your stay, I said, my tone smooth but laced with power. Everything you see here, the view, the service, the experience, every bit of it exists because I refuse to let your laughter define me. Melissa swallowed hard, her pride visibly crumbling. Claire's gaze dropped to the floor. For the first time, I saw something new in their expressions. Not mockery, not dismissal, something closer to awe and shame. The silence stretched again, thick with the weight of everything unspoken. This was the moment I had imagined 1,000 times. And living it was even sweeter. I let the silence linger, savoring the weight of it. The two women who once dismissed me now sat in leather chairs worth more than my first car, their confidence unraveling with every passing second. Melissa tried to recover first. She forced a brittle smile. Well, Emily, we're proud of you. Really. I mean, this place is gorgeous. You've come a long way. Her words hung awkwardly in the air. The same woman who once asked me if I could even afford dinner at a chain restaurant was now fumbling for approval. I leaned forward slightly, resting my elbows on the desk. I appreciate that. But I'm not here for pride or compliments. I'm here for truth. Their eyes flicked to each other nervously. You see, I continued, my voice calm but unwavering. Money isn't what hurt me back then. It was the way you treated me. The way you laughed like I was less than you. That wound doesn't vanish just because I own this resort now. Melissa opened her mouth, but I lifted a hand, stopping her. I don't want an apology. Words mean nothing unless they change behavior. So if you want to stay here, if you want to enjoy what I've built, there are conditions. Claire frowned. Conditions? Yes. I stood, walking slowly toward the desk where the seashell gleamed softly. I picked it up, turning it between my fingers. Each of you has something to unlearn, something to heal. That's the only currency I care about. I looked at Melissa first. Melissa, you've spent your life measuring people by what they own, bags, clothes, cars. Here, you won't find that kind of validation. I want you to spend your stay without showing off a single brand name. Not one. Learn how to exist without labels. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded faintly. Then I turned to Claire. And you, Claire. You've always hidden behind sarcasm and gossip, tearing people down to feel taller. During your time here, you will journal every morning, writing something kind. Not about others, but about yourself. Build your confidence without destroying someone else's. Claire blinked, taken aback. For once, she didn't have a quick retort. I placed the shell gently back on the desk, my voice softening slightly. This isn't about revenge. I don't hate you, but I refuse to repeat old patterns. If you want to be here, really be here, you have to leave those habits behind. Otherwise, this resort isn't your place. Melissa swallowed hard, her eyes shining with something dangerously close to tears. Claire shifted in her chair, uncomfortable but silent. I sat back down, my hands folded gracefully in my lap. The ocean has a way of stripping us down to our truest selves. Consider this a gift, a chance to start over. Take it or don't. The power in the room was undeniable. For the first time, I wasn't the one asking for a seat at the table. I was the one setting the rules. And they knew it. The days that followed were quiet, almost reverent. Melissa and Claire moved through the resort differently now, their usual arrogance softened by the weight of expectation I had placed before them. Melissa walked the beach barefoot, unbothered by labels or selfies, listening to the waves instead of boasting to strangers. Claire began keeping a small journal tucked into her bag, scribbling words of kindness and gratitude. I didn't hover. I let them discover the lesson themselves, just as I had learned mine years ago. One evening, I found myself alone on the balcony, the salt-kissed breeze brushing my hair. I held the seashell my grandmother had given me, turning it over in my fingers. It had been my talisman, my reminder that tides always change. Now it felt like a bridge between the girl I had been and the woman I had become. I remembered that cold dorm lounge, the sting of laughter, the hollow feeling of being too poor. And I felt gratitude, not for their cruelty, but for the fire it had lit inside me. That fire had fueled years of perseverance, long nights, sacrifices, and relentless work. It had brought me here, not just to this resort, but to a place of strength, independence, and self-respect. I glanced toward the lobby, now bathed in the golden light of sunset. Guests laughed, staff moved gracefully through their duties, and the Reynolds sisters, Melissa and Claire, stood by the water's edge, quietly smiling, transformed in ways I hadn't expected. I realized something fundamental. Success was sweetest, not when it silenced those who doubted me, but when it allowed them to witness the change and choose their own growth. With a deep breath, I pressed the seashell to my lips, a silent thank you to the woman who had whispered in my ear that night, "Tides change." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a glow across the waves, I whispered to no one but myself. They once said I was too poor for the trip, but I built the destination.